seen the failures. And one thing which is consistent when an application fails and the student is a topper is a common blind spot. They're focusing too much on credentials and less on character. And the applicant from the CBSE board is being compared with the applicant from the IB board from the same school. The IB board will get a little bit of an edge. Now, if you compare the fee structures, studying in Netherlands is 1/3 the cost of studying in the US. Recently in the US is adding even more to it. We see a significant shift this year and it's not quiet anymore.
Hi, I'm Sashwati Sarkar and you're watching The Times of India. Everyone's chasing the Ivy League dream, but few really understand what it takes to get there. It's not just about scoring high or writing a decent essay. It's about starting early, thinking smart and knowing exactly how the game is played. Why do students with near-perfect profiles still get rejected? How do you write essays that don't just sound authentic, but actually open doors at Stanford or U Chicago? And if you're not cut out for the Ivies, what are the smartest ways to still land up at a world-class university with great ROI? We're unraveling all of that today, myths, mistakes and must-dos with someone who has helped shape hundreds of international success stories. Meet Urvashi Malik, founder and managing director of College Core Education. Let's start with a very basic question that every Indian parent wants to ask. How early is early enough to start planning for Ivy Leagues or Oxbridge? And what exactly should students do to start at the age of 14, not 17? What should they start doing at 14 and not 17?
So this is a question I'm asked very often by parents. In fact, over-anxious parents ask this question as early as grade 6. So, yeah, grade 9, which is around the age of 14, is an ideal time to get started, to build a strong foundation. What the universities are looking at are consistent academics, depth in activities, and meaningful engagement beyond the classroom. So it's only when you get started early can you do justice to this entire process. In high school, you've got to select the right subjects to study. Delve deeper into those subjects through research, through internships, through activities. Then go on to exploring the extracurriculars that you're interested in. It could be debate, it could be a sport, it could be music, MUN. There's so much a student can explore. And unless they start exploring early, they won't be able to identify what they actually enjoy. And once they do that, then they can show depth and show leadership in those activities. And the third thing that Ivy Leagues and Oxbridge are going to look at are some standardized tests. Now, Ivy Leagues require SAT exams to be taken. So grade 9 and 10, you can get started with PSATs or PSATs as some people call them. And once you get to grade 11 and 12, you can look at SATs and AP exams. As far as Oxbridge is concerned, there's subject-specific exams that you have to take. And these subject-specific exams like LNAT, TSA, MAT and several others, they require critical thinking which is much beyond the school curriculum. So unless you get started early, you won't know what to do, you won't do justice to this process. So by the end of grade 11, you should have a compelling story.
But how is it possible to manage the pressure of board exams with the preparation for studying abroad? What would be your advice to students about balancing both?
If you get started early, you can manage it without pressure. If you get started once you reach grade 11, that's when the pressure kicks in. So divide your time judiciously. Remember, academics are still the foremost factor which universities will look at.
Absolutely. That's there, that's the core. Even if you excel in your extracurriculars, even if you have an extraordinary story to tell, then also, nothing will matter if your core is not fine.
Exactly. It's the academics which are going to open the door.
Urvashi, everyone talks about essays needing to be authentic, right? So, but authenticity isn't a strategy, right? So, what's your framework for building standout essays that actually get students into places like Stanford or U Chicago?
Yes, absolutely. Essays need to be authentic and authenticity cannot become a strategy, especially in today's day and age when you have so much access to AI. How do you bring in authenticity, which is genuine? So we follow a very structured three-step process, and it's a very creative framework that we are working with. So, yeah, sure. So we start with reflection. And this is a guided introspection, which sort of is done in a very friendly manner with students. We are trying to find out their formative experiences through childhood, in school, at home, in their extracurricular space, to find out what are the areas or the activities which actually made them the person they are today, or which changed their worldview, the struggles they faced, the achievements they've had, the turning points they've had, which are crucial. And this is such an interesting process. You can't imagine the kind of stories it throws up. So just the other day, I was sitting with a student through one of these reflection sessions. We call it a brainstorming session at College Core. So there, it's so immersed that this is one student who barely talked in any conversation. Okay. And while we started exploring, she said she wanted her college essay to be about music, her journey with music. We probed further. We said, why music? So she said, because that's where I feel I'm heard. We talked further. We said, why do you feel you're not heard? And why do you need music to feel that you're heard? She came up with some personal challenges she had been dealing with growing up, and challenges her parents were not even willing to discuss, which is what got her into this shell. She started retreating in school. At home, she wasn't talking till music gave her her voice. And that voice then gave her the courage to start interacting more in school and talk to her parents about her problems. So that's a
very nice anecdote that you have shared. I mean, these personal anecdotes always add life to a conversation. Thank you for sharing this.
The second step after reflection is helping the student find their narrative. So the essay is never about your experiences or the activities. It's more about the journey. An essay should be able to show growth. It should be able to show personal challenges, how you've dealt with them. It should be able to show reinvention, sort of a before and an after image. And that is what a good, real essay is all about. So if you look at University of Chicago prompts, I don't know whether you've read any of those prompts, they're really quirky. One of the prompts says, where's Waldo really? Okay. Another prompt says, what's X? So now, the way a student responds to this question, what's X, is such a powerful way of sharing what their worldview is or what's important for them.
Nothing could be as indefinite as X.
Yes, and each person's X is going to be different.
Of course, each person's X is going to be very, very different.
The third step we follow is helping them find their voice. You've got the story, you've got the narrative. How do you write that story? So we encourage them to write it in their own voice and not a polished version. Some students are reflective, some are have a great sense of humor, some will be a little stern when they have a conversation or very to the point. We ask them to write this essay in their own voice, such that it doesn't sound like a polished piece. Once we've done this process, they've started writing, we ensure we look at tone and structure. So tone, you're looking at ways to bring in hooks, to engage the reader to read more rather than get bored reading about the first paragraph and saying, oh, it's the same essay about the struggle in school. You've got to hook the reader in. You've got to bring in metaphors. You've got to bring in interesting anecdotes, dialogues, basically making that essay come alive as a piece. It's almost like you're having a conversation with a student.
It's like visiting someone on paper. Like,
yes.
I read it somewhere long back in school. A letter is a visit on paper. Similarly, here it's not paper, on the system maybe.
Yes.
Visiting the writer's or the narrator's life.
Right. So it's almost like the application readers stepping out of their office and are there in the scene where the student is talking about. So you have to show the story rather than tell the story.
So the way you described this was in itself like storytelling. I must admit that.
I really enjoy this process with the students. That's when you really get to know them. You get to know uh, what their vision is.
As part of the process, you should start organizing storytelling sessions for them. Why not?
We do a lot of essay reading with them. It's not really storytelling, to help them understand how do you express yourself, how do you find the stories which you really want to share, and how it's not at a superficial level.
So, you have mentored hundreds of students to get admission to the world's top colleges. So, what's the one thing that Indian toppers always get wrong while it comes to international applications, and how do you help them fix it?
So at College Core, we've been working with students for the last 21 years. We've seen all kinds of success stories, we've seen the failures. And one thing which is consistent when an application fails and the student is a topper is a common blind spot. They're focusing too much on credentials and less on character. So if it's a topper, you've obviously got stellar grades, you've got great standardized test scores, you have the research, but the university wants to know who are you as a person beyond those numbers. And that's something that they fail to address.
One thing, I have a very basic question. This is for my own knowledge. Indian universities never want to explore the person behind the applicant. I haven't seen so far.
Yes.
Why do you think global institutes want to know that?
The education system is very, very different. Here the learning happens just in the classroom, in the lectures. There are no discussions which follow in the library. There are no discussions which are happening in the classroom. There the learning is happening at various places. There are collaborative projects, there are discussions in class, discussions outside class. And unless there is a person who's bringing a very unique perspective, they're not really going to be adding to the learning of the group. So it's the difference in the education systems, and I guess that's the reason why the Indian universities don't look at the person beyond the grades. But the new age universities, the Ashoka and the Kriya and the Plaksha, they're looking at the person beyond the grades.
So when you say the person behind the applicant or the grades, what is it exactly? If you are required to pinpoint it, what is it? If you could give a few examples.
The unique point of view, their motivation, the way they handle setbacks. They might have very unique interests which will add so much to a classroom discussion, because most projects are collaborative across majors. So you might have a computer science major working with a philosophy major, with a history major, all working together. And this is how the unique perspectives come in and enhance the group learning.
The multidisciplinary approach of learning over there, which is very much missing in India.
Yes, it is, unfortunately.
Many believe that Indian boards carry very less weightage in international institutions. Is it true? Is it a truth or it's a myth?
It's almost a complete myth. Indian boards like ISC and CBSC are highly regarded by US, UK and the other international universities. They understand the academic rigor of these boards. They understand that students studying in these boards are probably very good at STEM subjects and at math. So the problem is not with the rigor or with the credibility as far as universities abroad are concerned. The problem is more with giving context and vision, which is what is lacking. So if we look at the IB board or the A levels, they have various data points to which can be used to assess a student's capability or their possibility of succeeding at college. So an IB board will have predicted grades, they will have extended essays, they will have a portfolio of written work which is graded in school, they'll have IAs. So several things, several data points which the university has access to. Unfortunately for CBSE, we do not have these data points. There are no internal assessments being shared. There is no portfolio of work which is a part of the curriculum. And the way the predicted grades are given by schools, that too is not standardized. So universities do not really rely on it. Okay. In fact, what needs to be done, and which is what we advise counselors in schools to do and students to do, is provide context. So through their letters of recommendation, through the school profile which is sent with every application, they can explain the grading system better. They can explain the academic rigor of the subjects the student has taken. They can also support the application with strong recommendations. Similarly, we tell a student to provide context and more data points by presenting strong standardized scores. SATs are required, APs are not required, but it's a great way to show that you are able to handle college level coursework and can handle academic rigor. So, strong extracurriculars, strong essays, more data points, it's all about providing better visibility and context.
So our CBSE schools should look into it that they provide more context and data points.
Yes.
And also while it comes to the weightage of CBSE and other state boards vis-a-vis international curriculum, what is the weightage like for global institutes? Do they give more? Do IB school curricula students have an edge over CBSE, ICSE, and other state boards?
Look, if we compare, let's say, a CBSE board topper, not really a topper, not everyone can be a topper, but someone who's scoring high grades in CBSE and ISC, and they back that up with strong essays, strong extracurriculars, strong standardized test scores.
Vis-a-vis the same thing, vis-a-vis the same standard from an IB curriculum school student.
I think it's more important for a student to show how they rise within their own curriculum.
No, I'm asking a very different question. So,
I've understood your question.
You are an admissions officer.
Yeah.
You like both the profiles,
Right.
the academics, the test scores, the essays, everything. Both of them are at par. Whom do you think you will choose, or the admissions officers will choose, the IB or the CBSE?
Again, contextual. If the student does not have access to IB education in his school, they can't fault the student.
But do they?
They don't. In a situation when the school offers both boards and the applicant from the CBSE board is being compared with the applicant from the IB board from the same school, the IB board will get a little bit of an edge.
I mean, that's the truth that I wanted to get to.
Within the same school. If the student doesn't have access to it, they will not fault the student. It's how you rise within the curriculum, really.
Right. So there's a rising trend among Indian undergrads, applying to Japan, Korea, and Netherlands, countries that were not the top 5 choices even a decade ago. So what's changing in these ecosystems, and are they viable alternatives for global careers?
I do agree. We've been seeing a quiet though a significant shift over the years.
Quite and significant.
Yes.
Right?
So about 10 years ago, if you talk to an Indian family about sending their kids abroad, the only options discussed were the US, UK, and maybe some options in Canada. But of late, we've seen a growing interest in countries other than these. We at College Core, we place students at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, University of Toronto, University of Amsterdam, University of Kyoto. So there are various options now coming up, and there are several reasons for this change. First being, a few years ago, there were not so many courses being offered in English language at the undergrad level. More and more universities are now offering courses in English language in almost all these countries, with the exception of a few. The second is
Japan also
now has universities like Ritsumeikan, University of Tokyo, Kyoto University, several others are now offering courses in English language. There are of course courses in Japanese language also. There are more in Japanese, fewer in English, but the trend is growing. Second is affordability. Now if you compare the fee structures, studying in Netherlands is 1/3 the cost of studying in the US. There are public universities in Germany and Japan where you can study at a fraction of the US cost. So affordability is also coming in. Third factor is that the ecosystems in these countries, these universities are becoming more global. They're now recruiting students globally very consciously. They also have tie-ups and partnerships for research with US and UK universities. And they're also introducing courses which are interesting, which are across countries. We've worked with students who've gone for a world business program at USC, which starts at Hong Kong
Business
University.
analytics is coming up in a large
That it is.
way, yeah.
That it is. So this world business program starts at Hong Kong University in the first year, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, goes on to Bocconi University in Italy in the second year. Third year, you're at USC in the US, and fourth year, it's your choice wherever you want to end. So these options are very, very interesting. So the ecosystem is helping. And I think the fourth very significant factor is the post-study work opportunities which these countries are now offering. What's happening recently in the US is adding even more to it. We see a significant shift this year and it's not quiet anymore. The parents are asking for options in these countries and they're actively exploring these options.
Do you see an eastward shift after the Harvard brouhaha? Because many universities from the east are opening their doors for students who are in trouble in Harvard.
Right.
Do you see this? Do you see a surge in this trend in the coming years or in the coming few months?
I wouldn't take a guess for the coming years. Things are so fluid. Things are changing every day, every morning you read something. Yeah. They might settle down over the next 3 months. They might not. But yes, options are opening up in the other countries and they're not backup options. These countries are offering world-class education at affordable prices, visa policies which are far more stable than what is happening in the US right now, and an environment which is very inclusive for international students.
What I was thinking, maybe the situation in the US and also in Canada, it's working as a catalyst for a shift towards the so-called alternative destinations. But even after things settle down over there and people see the potential, now there will be a bunch of students who will see the potential because they were compelled to do so.
Right.
And then there could be a chain effect where students see, okay, fine, they went there and they were doing fine. So is there a possibility that people will at some point of time stop prioritizing the US and Canada the way they do now, even if things settle down over there?
Look, it may happen a few years down the line. I don't see it happening immediately.
Right.
We've got to wait for the success stories to come out from there, from the other countries.
Right. That's what I was saying. Maybe a decade or so.
Yeah, it'll take a while. The shift can be felt right now.
No, I mean, even in a decade or so, no economy will be as large as US. So the work opportunities will, of course, not be as prospective as they would find there. But still,
Again, depends on the visa policies. How easy are they going to make it for international students to
visa and
continue
post-study work.
Study work opportunities.
So, as you were saying, you have seen many successes, but you have seen rejections as well. Rejections are brutal. So, what are the 3 reasons students with great academics still get rejected in top universities? One we discussed, where they fail to, reflect the persona behind the applicant and behind the grades. Apart from that, are there other reasons also for which they get rejected, and how do you reverse engineer those failures?
Yes, rejections are brutal. They are because these students have worked so hard over the years for their dream Ivy League admit or an Oxbridge admit. And when faced with a rejection, they're at a loss as to how to proceed. We have studied over the years the reasons for these rejections, and I can really sort of pinpoint 3 distinct areas. First, as you mentioned, not going beyond the numbers to show your own personality, to show your distinct voice through your application. The second, presenting an application which sounds very disjointed, it's not cohesive. The narrative is there, it's not compelling, and it's not cohesive. In the sense, there might be one activity which stands out as something that they've excelled at, or there might be one essay which is brilliant. But when you see the application as a whole, it really feels like 5 different people in that application because there's no cohesive narrative. There's no connecting the dots of what's happening. So when we're working with students, we help them find this cohesive story, which we bring out consistently, whether it's through their essays or the applications or the activity lists or the interviews. So that's the second reason. The third reason is very often that they played it very safe and they haven't strategized properly. So an application which is going to work very well at NYU is not going to work at MIT. Their institutional requirements or their institutional philosophies are so distinctly different. So student needs to understand what is it that this institution is looking for and then pitch their story to match that. So it's not a one-way conversation. It's not just them pitching themselves, but understand what the university looks for and then pitch your story. So it's very important for a student to understand the DNA of the university, and that's where we as counselors step in. Understand the DNA, understand the educational ethos. What a Brown university is looking for is not what Cambridge is looking for.
Absolutely.
And then apply accordingly. And as far as reverse engineering is concerned, we have students who grow up dreaming of going to Harvard or grow up dreaming of going to UPenn and can't think beyond it. And when the rejection comes, and rejections do come because the acceptance rates are
Very low.
3% acceptance rate. There's so many people who may be top of their class, but they're not going to make it for several reasons. So we help the student understand that this is not a judgment on their profile or their application. It's more like feedback. There's usually nothing wrong with the application, but there might be something missing. And we try and identify what is that missing factor. Bring that in, maybe plan a gap year for that student.
Is it okay to take a gap year, or is it taken very negatively in global institutes?
US and UK are absolutely okay with gap years. Absolutely okay. They encourage it provided that gap year is being used productively. And you're not simply taking time off because you're not ready or you need a break. You use it productively to enhance your story.
How does one prove that it was utilized productively?
So you use it by maybe taking up an internship in your area of interest, or working with the community, or traveling the world to learn more about the world, or take exams to show how you're able to handle a higher level of academic rigor. So use that time productively. And then the universities are happy seeing a student after a year, a student who's had an opportunity to take a break from the high school madness, discover themselves, figure out what they want to do in life, and are back in university with renewed vigor.
So if a student's profile isn't Ivy material, what are the smartest hacks to stand a chance at a globally ranked university?
When you say Ivy material, I have an objection to the word.
Okay. Please rephrase it the way it should be.
Yeah. They're not ready maybe to apply to an Ivy League, maybe because of their grades, or the standardized tests are not in place, or their activities are not really in the place where they ideally like to be. But Ivy Leagues is not the only way of getting world-class education or a global career. There are brilliant universities across the world which are ranked amongst the top 100 globally. So we help the students identify these universities which are great fit for them, but which are outside the spotlight. Within the spotlight, you'll have universities like Harvard, Princeton, Oxford, Stanford.
Cambridge.
We help them see beyond. We've had students get into University of Hong Kong, into University of Toronto, into University of Tokyo. There's so many good universities which are globally highly ranked, offer world-class education, but are easier to crack than Ivy Leagues and are far more affordable.
Of course.
So that's the first strategy we look at. The second, there are universities which have niche strengths. If you look at University of Waterloo, they're known for their computer science programs. If you look at Bocconi in Italy, they're known for their data science programs. If you look at Indiana University, the Kelley Business School, it's known for its business program. But if you look at the overall ranking of that university, they might not figure very highly. However, these programs are, if you look at rankings within the program, they're very highly ranked. So rather than chase a brand, chase the strength of the university. That's the second thing we would look at. Third strategy is to start planning early. If you feel you're not ready for the Ivy Leagues currently, take time off, take a gap year, build on your story, build on your academic
is not
grades.
welcome everywhere, you know. It's only welcome in the US.
It's welcomed by the US and UK, as we discussed. Other countries are not that open about it. We also advise students to maybe take admission into a university in the current year, build on their profile, their grades, and seek a transfer after 1 year. And the transfer can be within the US, the transfer can be from India to the US.
Is it, I mean,
Yeah.
and for a transfer from an Indian university to say US university or say an Australian university, the students need to follow the same procedures. You know, they have to crack all the entrance tests and language tests, everything, or there is some sort of a relaxation.
SAT is no longer required. School counselors' recommendations are no longer required. Instead, they need their credentials from the university they've gone to. So the transcript of the first year of study is required. An SAT score, if they have a good SAT score, they can always add it to their application. And the essays are now very different. It's all about why do you want the transfer? What is it that your current university is not able to give you, which you're seeking with us? So the story becomes different.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I never knew that this happens. So that brings us to our last question of this very meaningful session. You know, post-admit isn't the end game anymore. It's just the beginning, right? So what are the 3 most overlooked things students must do after getting their acceptance letters to make the most of the international, education or international education journey?
You're absolutely right. Getting the admission letter is definitely not the end of the journey.
It's the start of another.
Beginning. It's actually the beginning of the next phase, the phase which you've worked forward for the last 4 years of your high school. So going into that phase well prepared, getting the best out of it is what we guide the students for. So the things that we ask them to do is first build your pre-departure network early. Get in touch with your peers, with your alumni by joining WhatsApp groups which the university has, by joining LinkedIn cohorts or joining Discord servers, connecting with your peers and alumni so that you can choose your courses in the first year very strategically. You can choose your professors strategically. You can choose the right housing. You can guard against the pitfalls which might happen in the first semester otherwise. So build this network which is going to be assisting you. Secondly, we ask them to start working backwards from their career as if their career is about to get launched. Start from day one. What are the skills necessary for that? Do they have their skills? They have free time on their hands before college begins. So build on those skills. Also do research as to what the university offers. Are there career clubs? Are there career fairs which happen? Is there a career advising department they should be working closely with? If you look at, let's say there's a student who wants to be an investment banker. What are the necessary skills that an investment banker would need, which they don't have as a high school student, which maybe they'll develop through college, but is there something they can do before they leave for college? Also, the research might show very interesting opportunities within that college. For example, Indiana University in their business school has a special program they run for a select 20 students to prepare them for this. So having knowledge in time will help them apply for courses like this. And the third thing, and also of course get their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles ready in time. So be career ready. And the third thing is understand the difference in culture between the two countries. The cultural nuances in India are going to be very different from the cultural nuances
and
in the country
shock
they're going
is very real, which we fail to address in many cases.
Yes. So understanding that, understanding how to ask questions in class. in the Indian ecosystem, we are told not to interrupt the professor or to address them only as sir and ma'am. Whereas, depending on the country they're going to, discussion might be encouraged. They
And
might
sometimes
need to,
the professors are on first names.
yeah, in the US, they're always on first name terms. So, understanding these cultural differences, knowing how to approach your professors, how to meet them during office hours, how to sort of talk to your peers. It's so acceptable here in our country to walk up to your friend and say, "So, how much did you get in your exams?" Or, "How much are your parents spending for such and such activity?"
Here it's very okay to ask somebody what's your package.
Yeah.
I mean,
You can't do that there. You can't do that. So, before you get into any kind of problems, understand the cultural differences. Go into the entire system prepared. And we help our students do that. In fact, the students who've now got admissions, we are going to hold a transition workshop where we invite the senior students and come and talk to them and explain what they went
seniors
through.
who are
Currently in college.
Okay.
So they handle this transition workshop and they talk about how do you choose your courses, how do you save money when you're buying books, where do you get the right kind of second-hand books from, how do you get the right telephone plan, how do you choose your courses, how do you rate your professors. So all those things we handle in these transition workshops so that these students go through the college totally prepared, and we keep in touch with them in college as well because we want to be a part of their success journey. We're not willing to give up on them.
Right. This conversation was very, very animated, very much like a storytelling session, I must say.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and inputs.